Reluctantly.
30 years as a sports writer, an avid golfer, and a horse racing fan, an author of The Turcots, the remarkable story of a horse racing dynasty. Curtis Stock is my guest today.
Reluctantly.
This podcast, reluctantly sponsored by homegirls.ca, a top producing team at Remax Professionals. Also by Northern Alberta Heating, with work in and out of Edmonton and hiring bonuses for experienced candidates. Email your resume to tim@northernheating.ca.
Reluctantly.
Hey, Curtis, good to see you.
How are you, Terry?
Doing very well. It's been a while since we hung out. What was the last time in the clubhouse at
the country club, I think.
Was it at the country club or was it the one out west at McCourt's golf course?
The ranch?
The ranch.
Could have been the ranch too, yeah.
Always good to catch up on the golf course, but it's thank you for doing this today. I appreciate it. I figure it's a good time to talk to somebody who's covered sports for, the better part of their life, because there's a lot going on. There's baseball's in full swing. We've got the basketball playoffs, hockey playoffs, all kinds of things. The Masters just happened. We're full into the golf season. I know you've got your VIP golf show podcast going, so we've got lots to talk about today. I guess the first thing I would like to talk to you about is something that I know very little about. So I wanted to come in with no preconceived notion or really prior knowledge. I just guess that the perception that I have for horse racing is gambling.
Yeah. That's what it boils down to, really, about handicapping the races and trying to figure out who's going to win the next race.
Your book, The Turcots, the remarkable story of a horse racing dynasty. Now, is that about the Turcots? Are they a family of...
Here's the book.
Okay, there you go. Well, you can hold that up. Sure, hold it in front of your camera so people can have a boo. We're on YouTube as well. So when did you write that?
I wrote it a year and a half ago, but I actually started it 20 years ago.
Oh, wow.
I was working at the Journal at the same time, and I found it was impossible to write the book and write for the Journal at the same time. And then when COVID hit, I told myself I have no more excuses, and I started writing the book again.
Tell me about the Turcots. Are they a family of the people that raised horses or that raced horses?
Not at all. It was a lumberjack family in New Brunswick, very poor lumberjack family with a family of 14 children. 5 of them became thoroughbred jockeys, all very successful. Unfortunately, they all had tragedy in their lives, but Ron Turcotte's the biggest name, of course, the jockey of Secretariat. But after him came Noel and Rudy and Roger and Eves. They won close to $61 million in purse earnings and about 9,000 races.
Between the 5 of them, 9,000 races?
Yeah. It's incredible. It's impossible. In fact, the first line in my book, in the prologue, says it couldn't happen, but it did.
That is unbelievable. That's the Sutter brothers of horse racing.
Yeah, exactly. Amazing family, and they knew nothing, zero about horse racing. Ron looked after the horses in the lumberjack camp,
right?
And he went to Toronto looking for work, him and his buddy Reg Pelche, who was a next door neighbor in New Brunswick. And they were running out of options. They were going broke. And Ron came down the stairs on the first Saturday in May in 1960. And the landlord was watching the Kentucky Derby. The landlord said, "Sit down and watch." And Ron said, "Well, watch what?" And he says, "Well, the Kentucky Derby, the biggest race in the world, is on." And Ron says, "I don't know anything about it." And the landlord said, "Well, with your size, that's what you should be doing. You should be a jockey." And Ron said, "What's a jockey?" And the landlord said, "The little guys in the white pants."
The little guys in the white pants.
White pants. Those are the jockeys.
The guys beating the hell out of the horses.
Yeah. And he said, "I got a friend who works at the racetrack, and they're always looking to hire help. So why don't you go to the track and see what you can find?" And somehow they got through the security, and Ron and Reggie, and the racing secretary's assistant took them across the street there was streets at Woodbine Racetrack in Toronto, and with barns on every one of the so-called streets, and took him to E.P. Taylor's barn. Of course, is one of the most best-known Canadians of all time, and had the biggest horse racing outfit. And he asked if they were needing help, and the guy said sure, and he handed Ron a shank and said, "Here you go." And Ron said, "What do I do?" And the guy said, "Just keep turning left and walk the horse." And within 2 years, after not knowing anything about horse racing at all, Ron became Canada's leading rider. It's unbelievable.
It is really hard to wrap my head around that. How I mean, hey, the stranger things have happened, right? All of
Yeah.
a sudden, somebody's raising a kid, and I mean, a perfect example of that is the footage that we've seen since the Masters of Rory McIlroy appearing on television in Ireland as a young kid and saying that, I want to be a professional golfer and I want to win all four majors, and then all of a sudden here we are 30 years later, and he's done just that. But you say that they're from the Maritimes and a family of lumberjacks, and if they're all the size of jockeys, I would imagine that they were terrible lumberjacks.
Well, five of them were small in stature. Some of them were bigger. The dad was pretty big, but they were all like phenomenal jockeys. Like I said, like Ron with Secretariat, Noel, he was a leading rider in Canada. Rudy won races up and down the East Coast. He was a leading rider just about every track he went to. Roger was North America's leading apprentice rider, and Eves, who's from St. Albert, was one of Alberta's top riders.
So Ron with Secretariat, obviously the most famous of
Yeah.
all of the horses. Is there a horse more famous?
No,
No,
no, he was the best horse by far. I mean, it's been argued because you can go back 50 years to Man of War and Seabiscuit and horses like that. But Secretariat's records in 1973, his track records for the Kentucky Derby, the Preakness, and the Belmont still haven't been broken. The horse is just that phenomenal. I mean, 1973 to today, and the records have not been broken.
So there had to have been a jockey that was on Secretariat before Ron Turcotte. What
No,
happened to that guy?
no, Secretariat. Ron had come to the track in 1960, and Secretariat didn't run until 1973. So Ron rode a lot for Lucien Laurent, the trainer of Secretariat, and he brought this horse to New York, I believe it was anyway, to get ready to train. No, it was in Florida, and Ron said, "Who's this big boy?" And Lucien Laurent said, "It's going to be a good one," and he was.
So right out of the gate, that the first races that he did was on Secretariat, and that's how he became the legendary jockey.
Yeah, there was one guy named Paul Feliciano who rode him in his very first race, but Feliciano got Secretariat into all sorts of trouble, and the horse finished fourth in his first start, and then he went on. Ron took over, and that was it.
And of course, Paul Feliciano went on to sing Feliz Navidad and have a great evening.
Yeah, so he got his share too.
See, I knew there was a guy before Ron Turcotte that rode. So
yeah, one start, one bad one.
So one start, Paul Feliciano, then Ron Turcotte, and was it right through the entire career of Secretariat until he hung up the hooves?
Yeah, until Toronto in his last race. Ron got dazed and couldn't ride the horse for his last start, but Ron rode him all the other times.
Wow. And just the millions of dollars raised.
Oh,
Like if you're talking about Secretariat and Ron Turcotte and then the four other brothers and the other horses, where was Ron in the level of earnings, and then where were the other four guys? Did the other four guys match what Ron made?
no. Ron was far and away the leading rider. He won 5,000 races, and then he got hurt in a spill in New York. I don't know if you remember, but horse went down, and Ron was paralyzed from the waist down and remains that way. And the other four brothers, they were all involved in tragedy too. Noel and Roger, they both took their own lives. Rudy was an alcoholic, and died of alcoholism. And Eves, he was in an accident here in Alberta, and he couldn't ride again.
Wow. It sounds like an incredible story for somebody, like I said at the beginning. I'm not very knowledgeable when it comes to horse racing, but the book sounds absolutely fascinating, and it's something that, even though I don't have any prior knowledge, or I'm not a horse racing fan, or I'll check out everybody's hats at the Kentucky Derby on that Saturday and Sunday with that weekend or whatever. But who doesn't like a mint julep, right?
That's right.
Yeah,
and the book's not just about horse racing. I mean, it's about the lives of these brothers.
Sounds great. Is it available Amazon, all the regular bookstores and all that stuff?
It's still on Amazon. I know that.
Okay. What about what's happening with horse racing in Alberta, in Canada, internationally? What's the big story that's happening right now? I'm assuming you still follow it very closely.
Yeah, I do. And horse racing in Alberta, especially in Edmonton, used to have the highest per capita betting in North America. They would bet $1 million every Saturday, and that was all at the track. It wasn't on phones or the computers or off-track betting locations, because they didn't exist. It was all at the track, and they would bet $1 million every Saturday. And now they're nowhere close to where they were. It's really a shame how much horse racing has gone down in Alberta. It remains very strong in Toronto. It's very good in Oklahoma and other states. But Gulfstream is having a problem in Florida, and Santa Anita's having their problems, which is too bad, because it is a great sport.
Is it it's the sport of kings. Is it the industry itself? Is it the horse? And I'm asking again, as somebody who just doesn't know, I'm just thinking, is it because of the pedigree of horses that are available for racing, or is there?
No, it's just other forms of gambling took over. People want the quick fix when they're gambling, and there's there's 18 to 20 minutes in between each horse race. Now they have all the simulcasts, so you can have a race going on and you can bet on every 2 or 3 minutes. In the 1970s and 80s, the only way you could bet was at the track. Yeah, they would bet $1 million every Saturday. The cars were lined up around the racetrack.
Ryan Nugent-Hopkins from the Edmonton Oilers owns a racehorse. Is that
yes.
Is that a successful endeavor, financial investment?
Oh yeah, his horse, Infinitely Patient, was just retired this year to become a broodmare. She's a multiple champion in Canada. She was unbelievable. But now she's becoming a broodmare.
Broodmare, is that someone that a horse that that ends up making new racehorses?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, all right. And then so that's a female horse.
Yeah.
On the other hand, Secretariat was a male horse, so he was the one that would be having his way with the broodmare all over the country. And that is quite the industry itself. I can only imagine what would have cost to have your horse impregnated by Secretariat.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars, and horses are bought and sold for well over $1 million as babies now, as yearlings.
Is there an offspring from Secretariat that ended up becoming legendary as well?
No, he had his share of successes with other horses, but mostly he was known as a broodmare sire. That means that the fillies and mares that Secretariat sired went on to produce other horses that some of them were exceptionally good. But as a stud, he was nowhere close to what he was as a racehorse.
That's incredible. I so appreciate your knowledge of the industry of the sport and everything. I find it fascinating. It's stuff that you don't know about, that you just think, oh wow, maybe I should look into this more, because it's pretty cool. Again, the book called The Turcots: The Remarkable Story of a Horse Racing Dynasty.
Yeah.
Reluctantly.
This podcast is reluctantly sponsored by the real estate team of homegirls.ca, a top producing team at Remax Professionals. If you are buying or selling in the Edmonton region, Shauna and Bonnie can handle everything with strong industry connections to mortgage brokers, home inspectors, lawyers, and contractors to support every step of the process. The market is very active right now. We recently listed our home, again, and it went from MLS to closing conditions in 8 days. Now, of course, results may vary from property to property, but Shauna and Bonnie have been our trusted real estate advisors through buying and selling no less than 7 properties. I've recommended them to many friends who want real, relatable people with a personalized, hands-on approach. New home, investment, recreational, even commercial properties. Homegirls.ca is the website. Email info is right there. And the phone number is 780-517-HOME.
Reluctantly.
Golf. You're an avid golfer. How
Yeah.
are you? Are you still shooting your age?
No, I haven't shot my age yet. A friend of mine, he goes and shoots his age just about every day. We play every Thursday somewhere. He's a former jockey, Rick Hedge, and he shoots his age often. But
Nice.
I've never really come close. I shot 74 once. That's close as I've come.
Yeah. We're getting close to having all of the golf courses in the
Yeah.
Edmonton area open.
Yeah.
What is there local golf news that you can share? I know I talked to Art New on Moving Day podcasts on the
Yeah.
mornings.
That's why I
Saturday
put on my
mornings.
green jacket for art.
I was gonna say, is there local golf news that you're aware of that you can share with us at all?
Well, no, but all the courses seem to have come through quite well. I haven't heard of any that haven't, so it's full speed ahead. The last couple of days haven't been that nice, but it's supposed to be nice, and driving ranges are open, and Art News Trestle Creek is open, and have you played Trestle Creek?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's a good course. It's a
Yeah.
really good course.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun.
As more and more courses open, we just hope that we're able to get a tee time and avoid all those Calgary Flames players.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, with professional golf, we just went through and saw the Masters. Rory finally getting his Grand Slam, becoming only the 6th player to win all 4 majors.
Yeah, Hogan, Saracen, Tiger, Gary Player, Jack Nicklaus, and now Rory.
I almost got into a fist fight the other day. Somebody said, "And Arnold," and I said, "No,
Nope.
no, Arnold never won the PGA Championship, correct?"
That's correct.
Yeah,
I think he was second in it 6 times, if I'm not mistaken.
The accomplishment by only 6 people on the planet is something else. The emotion too, simply because of the journey that Rory McIlroy had to go through in order to get to that point in April of 2025 at Augusta National. You just saw it all come out on the 73rd hole.
Yeah, well, I mean the ride that he was on, it was unbelievable. I mean, he started the day with a nice 2-shot lead, and he lost that in the first hole with a double bogey, and then he was 4 up, and then he double bogeyed number 13 with one of the worst shots that you or I have ever hit. I mean, we would have cringed. It was an 80-yard pitch shot, and he put it in the water. It was and then he comes back and he goes 15 with maybe and probably one of the greatest shots of all time in golf. You know, that iron he hit into 15 across the pond to 4.5 feet.
He had to go around the tree to do it. You know,
it was like a 60-yard hook.
Yeah, I think you're right. You know, it's one of the greatest shots in the history of professional golf. When he hit that shot, I said to my father-in-law, I said, that shot just may have won him the tournament. And it made me think of Tiger's shot out of the bunker at the Canadian Open?
Yeah, Glen Abbey. Yeah, that another famous shot. I mean, that won him the Canadian Open. That was on 18.
And then, of course, there was the shot, 16. At Augusta National, Tiger from the I was there for that.
Oh, were you?
Yeah, I was there. I was sitting like 10 yards away from him when he hit that.
Oh, really? Isn't Augusta something else?
Oh, it's phenomenal. Have you been?
Yeah, I've been 3 times. I covered 3 Masters, and when I got there, and I don't know what you thought, but when you're walking into the grounds, at first you're walking over a gravel parking lot with bamboo chutes that are knocked down, and you're walking through these bamboo chutes and the gravel parking lot, and you're thinking, boy, they sure do something with TV with this course. And you get inside the gates and you look down, and there down below is heaven.
It really is. The first thing they say to you is no running.
No running, yeah, or you'll be asked to leave.
You know, the perception that everybody gets on TV is remarkable and stuff, and then everybody says, "Oh, you just don't." And you know, you probably said it. I've said it to other people. You don't get a sense for what it really is when you're watching it on TV. You have to be there to see the ups, the downs.
Yeah,
I mean, number 10 is a tobogganing hill, basically. It's
unbelievable.
the other thing that people don't see is, I suppose, they romanticize the town of Augusta, but it's a pretty small little town that's got nothing really in it.
Very small, very small. The first time I got there, the cab driver said, "Where to?" And I said, whatever motel it was on Boy Scout Road. And the cab driver shook his head and said, "Too bad." And I said, "What do you mean by that? It's $200 a night." And he said, $19.99 regular. I thought for 200 back in in the 1990s was going to be a pretty good hotel, but it wasn't.
1999 regular.
Yeah,
That is one of the best stories I've heard.
yeah. You didn't get a good one. I'm going, oh great.
You would have worked at the Edmonton Journal with Cam Cole then too. Didn't Cam play the Augusta National course after covering it?
He got to play it twice, and if I recall, he shot 82 at Augusta from the same tees.
Wow.
He was a good golfer. Is a good golfer still.
That is something. You know, with the coverage of the Masters this year, and especially on the final day with DeChambeau from the Live Tour, and
Yeah,
then Rory from the PGA Tour,
yeah,
and how those tours have, you know, locked horns, and how Rory McIlroy has been so vociferous about, you know,
yeah,
and you know, really defending it and all that stuff. I thought it was going to be much more of a USA for DeChambeau and more of a anti-Northern Ireland sort of thing because he's not USA for Rory. But it turned out the complete opposite. The
yeah.
sentimental favorite was Rory McIlroy. How do you see that whole dynamic between the Live Tour and the PGA?
Well, it's a mess, and I don't know how they're going to straighten it out because I don't think the Live Tour is going away. They have too much money. The players who compete on the PGA, good for them to stick by their guns. But I mean, they were offered a lot of money, and a lot of them took it. It's not the same, I mean, when you turn on a tournament today, there'll be guys that you've never heard of leading the pack, and the Live Tour you read nothing about or hear nothing about really about the winners. It's not healthy. You want to see the best go against the best.
Exactly. I don't particularly care for John Rahm,
No, neither.
but I liked seeing him getting beat on the PGA Tour.
Yeah,
And I'm a big fan of Dustin Johnson. I liked seeing him win. I liked seeing
yeah,
him, you know, being called out for grounding the club in
yeah,
that fairway bunker. And I guess us being the aged gentlemen that we are, we also miss the Furicks and the Woodses and the Mickelsons and that sort of thing. You know, we had a late taste of the Palmers and
yeah.
that kind of thing, and the Watsons and whatnot. But I guess it has to happen. There has to be new blood that come in and battle for the titles, right?
Yeah, I mean, like I think you're going to hear a lot of Oberg, and there was some other guys that are coming up. Corey Connors, he's been solid, but like you say, I mean, when Nicholas was playing with Palmer and Gary Player, and those were the big three back then. It was fascinating, but you don't have that anymore because some of the better ones are on the Live Tour. I got to play one hole with Arnold Palmer.
Where was that?
At Blackhawk. They brought,
Oh,
do you remember them bringing him in?
I do remember that, and I was so envious, and it was funny because I had met Arnold or in and around that time at Bay Hill.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I got to play one hole with him and Kevin Carius, and Peter Jacobson was the fourth in the ground. I was so nervous. I had I couldn't put a tee in the ground, and people were standing there lining both sides of the fairway on number 6. It's a par 3. And I looked down the right side and I hit a draw. And I said, I wouldn't stand there if I was you.
What did Arnold have to say? How much conversation did you have with him? A par 3, I would imagine it was abbreviated compared to who was lucky enough to play a par 5 with him. But
yeah, but after it was over, we had dinner, and there was a chair that was empty next to me. And 5 minutes later, in walks Arnold Palmer and sits down beside me.
wow.
You don't know what to say.
You know what? When I met him at Bay Hill, I was down there with a friend of mine who had previously worked for Arnold Palmer Course Design.
Oh, yeah.
And we were there having dinner, and Arnold was with his family at a table across the room, and I was a nervous wreck. I dropped my silverware. I dropped my dinner roll on the floor. I spilled my beer, and they came over and they were saying, like, "Are you okay? Do we need to ask you to leave?" sort of thing. I was a mess. And then when I got the opportunity after he had finished having dinner with his family, he came over and talked to me. He was introduced to me, and we talked and we talked and we talked about the things that I brought up, and he would ask me questions about what I was talking about and everything.
Yeah.
And he talked to me until I was done talking. He
Yeah.
was the most gracious
Yeah.
man. It was something else. It was an absolutely beautiful thing.
Yeah, he's such a gracious guy, and I've interviewed him a few times, and you're right. I mean, he doesn't say, okay, I got to go. It's, are you finished? Do you have any more questions? And it was the same when Jack Nicklaus came to Northern Bear for their opening. After there was a media conference outside, and Nicklaus was there till almost midnight answering questions, and his wife Barbara was on the plane waiting for him.
They were remarkable ambassadors for the game. In 2004, on the Friday at the Masters, I walked the course for Arnold's final competitive round.
Yeah, that must be something.
On 18, when he hit it to the right, I was the crowd was all lined up the left-hand side, and it was 8-10 deep. And then for some reason, there was nobody on the right-hand side except me. And when he hit it into the rough on the right-hand side under the trees, he was standing there with tears in his eyes, and he turned and looked at me on the other side of the rope. We were probably about 10 yards away from each other. And I just looked at him with tears in my eyes. I said, "Thank you very much, Mr. Palmer." And he said, "Nope, thank you."
Isn't that amazing?
He hit his shot, and he went up to the adulation and ovations of the crowd. It was the most remarkable thing.
I saw Nicklaus's last round at the Open Championship at St. Andrews, and I remember walking down the fairway with him, and there was this one guy. He was in one of the hotels that was lines up on the 18th fairway, and he was crying and yelling, "Jack, we love you, Jack. We love you, Jack." And it was just amazing.
So have you been over to play anything in Scotland? And
yeah, I played St. Andrews, and then we played a few other smaller courses, but we played a course called
King's Barn.
King's Barns, yeah, which is an amazing course. Have you
yes,
played that?
It was. I played there too. I played King's Barn. I played the old course. We played the new course, and I also played Carnoustie.
Oh, nice.
Played Carnoustie the year before it was the Open Championship. So that would have been 2018. So it was 2017 I was over there. When we played the old course, and the wind was gusting from 50 to 70 mile per hour, and it was raining.
Oh, no.
And
well, you know what they say, nay rain, nay golf.
Yeah. Well, I said to my caddy was a great guy. He was a bald guy, and he was been a caddy for a while there, but we got to talk, and turns out that he was a punk rocker from back in the day. He used to have safety pins and all kinds of shit in his eyebrows and stuff like that. We were talking away, and we were on the 7th hole. I was taking a video showing my father-in-law and my brother-in-law, and just walking with the rain just pelting us. And I turned to him and I said, "You guys, this is weather in Skyline." I said, "You guys golf in this stuff all the time?" And he looked at me, he goes, "Shit, no." He goes, "We wait till the sun comes out." He says, "The only reason I'm here with you right now is because you're paying me $100 for the loop." He was a great guy.
Reluctantly.
This podcast is reluctantly sponsored by Northern Alberta Heating Limited, specializing in commercial HVAC all over the province of Alberta. Right now, they are urgently seeking motivated long-term employees that want to work for a great company. Are you an experienced sheet metal worker? Are you looking for a new outfit? A change for the better? Maybe the place you're at isn't the right fit for you. Well, send your resume to tim@northernheating.ca. They're looking for new people, first through fifth-year apprentices and younger journeymen. They have work both in and out of Edmonton, and they're offering hiring bonuses for experienced candidates. Get your resume together and send it off today. Email tim@northernheating.ca to kickstart something new or a change for the better.
Reluctantly.
You mentioned some of the things that you'd cover the Masters 3 times and so on. Do you have highlights from other sports? Do you have a basketball highlight, a short story from any coverage, or was that up your alley?
I did cover 3 Super Bowls, 3 or 4 Super Bowls.
Oh,
and those are really neat. I remember the one year it was Dallas was playing Buffalo, and the score was 30-17, and everybody thought, well, it's over. The only thing is that Dallas was favored by 12.5 points, and Buffalo had the ball, so there was still a lot riding on it in terms of money.
Was there ever any basketball, any baseball, boxing coverage that you can remember?
I saw Kenny LaCusta fight on the undercard of a Hearns-Leonard fight in Vegas. That was a terrible. Both were brutal fights. Leonard and Hearns just danced. Nobody did anything, and people were throwing bottles into the ring. I'm sitting at ringside, and I got out of there. And they asked after if you guys had come to fight, and they said, "Well, we fought." And everybody's going, "No, he didn't." Yeah. And Kenny LaCusta was fighting a guy named, I don't know if you remember, Tommy Machine Gun. LaCusta didn't last very long, and this guy was just pummeling him, and Kenny went to the wrong corner one time. Morrison. Tommy Machine Gun Morrison.
Oh, okay, that rings a bell. Boxing. Were you already a sports writer during the era of the Thrilla in Manila, the Smokin' Joe Fraser, the George Foreman, the Muhammad Ali?
No, it was just before. I was writing for the University of Calgary Gauntlet because I would write a story and slide it underneath the door of the Gauntlet, and it would appear the next day in the Gauntlet. And I thought that was the neatest thing in the world until I found out that they were getting paid to do that. And I went into the office and said, because I wrote under a nom de plume, I wrote under the name of Forward Pass. I said, "I'm Forward Pass. Where's my money?" And we got $50 a story.
Did they pay you retroactively?
No, I never asked. I was just happy to see my name in the paper there. And then the Calgary Herald called and asked if I wanted to be a summer student. I went there and worked there until I went to the Ontario Jockey Club and worked with Bruce Walker in the publicity department at Woodbine.
From boxing to MMA, what do you think about the current MMA situation compared to the...
I have to confess, I don't watch MMA.
No?
I loved boxing. I used to watch boxing all the time. I remember listening to the Ali's fights on the radio at my friend's house. The MMA, no. I've covered a few of them. I've had blood on my shirt from covering a few at the convention center here in Edmonton with fights that they promoted here. But
you talked about covering Super Bowls. Any CFL memories that stick out? Some spectacular stuff that you recall?
No, I didn't. I used to write a lot of features, and I remember writing a feature on the Eskimos from 19. What were all the years that they dominated the Eskimos? The 60s, 50s?
Well, 70s.
70s too, yeah.
70s into the 80s. Didn't they have 5 in a row or something?
Yeah. And I remember writing features on them, but I never covered it as a beat. Norm Cowley and Joanne Ireland did the Eskimos, Norm mostly.
Mm-hmm. I enrolled in a post-secondary education course. Gizmo is a second language, and I dropped out because I couldn't figure it out. It's harder to learn than Mandarin.
Yeah. The Giz, yeah. I
Yeah.
played one round with him. He's quite the character.
Oh yeah, I played golf with Giz a lot. Curling, you're an avid fan of curling.
I'm a fan, but I'm not a very good curler. We had a journal team we used to put in to the Bonspiel, the sports media Bonspiel, and Norm Colley was the skip, and my wife was third, and Norm's wife was lead, and I was second, and we had a lot of fun. But Norm is a good curler. My wife is a really good curler, but I'm not.
Did you have like back in the day when a newspaper used to come and sit on your front step before you picked it
Yeah,
up and it was all soggy, and
yeah.
we talked a little bit about Cam and some of the other sports writers back in the day, of course, Maddie's. So did you have a specific niche that you followed, or did everybody, it was just open to everybody? Because I know Jim Matheson ended up going to the Hockey Hall of Fame covering hockey.
Yeah.
Did you have the opportunity or the same opportunity to cover hockey as much as Jim or anybody
No,
else?
no. Jim was the hockey writer, and I covered horse racing when I first went to the Journal. That was my job, and then write features in the winter when there wasn't horse racing. But no, Matty was the guy with the Oilers. I wrote lots of features on the Oilers and went to a few Stanley Cup games, but it was as a feature writer.
As a feature writer, when you're writing on about a player, is it about players like a personal life or a
Sometimes,
battle?
or just about a topic.
What are some of the ones that stick out of Oilers past?
Oh man, I was there the night that Gretzky found out that he was going to be traded to L.A. and his dad was sitting at the same table, and he said they're going to trade you, and Wayne said no, no, they wouldn't do that, and they did. But I covered Gretzky's first game in L.A., which was something because there was hundreds of media there for that, and Wayne saw me in the crowd, and he motioned over to the trainer to let me come into the dressing room. So I sat in Luc Robitaille's stall, sitting next to Wayne Gretzky, and we talked for 15 minutes before they let any other media in.
The night that you say you were sitting beside Walter when Wayne, was that like literally the moment that Wayne found out that he was going to be traded was from his father and in that situation?
As far as I know, yeah.
So he had no
He had no idea.
no knowledge of it before. It makes
No,
me wonder how Walter knew what was going on, or if he just had a premonition or something.
I don't know, but Walter told him.
Do you have a recollection of, like, was it just silent, or was it, he said that no, they would never do that, but what was there, something even more incredulous as far as a reaction was concerned, or what?
No, it was getting late in the evening, and that was about all that I recall. But Walter said to him, and then Peter sold him to McNall.
Wow. Being there for that's historic.
Yeah, yeah, and then they had the going away media conference at Molson House.
Yeah, I remember that. You've seen the Oilers going back to probably just coming into the NHL.
Yeah,
Is that safe to
yeah,
say? Okay.
yeah.
So when you look back at coming into the NHL and everything happened up until 2015, and everything that you've seen from 2015 with Connor McDavid up until 2025. So the first years and then the last 10 years. What are your thoughts on McDavid and Draisaitl, the two of them, one of them individually, whatever?
Well, they're two of the greatest players to ever play the game. I still believe Gretzky and Bobby Orr were the two best, but McDavid still has years ahead, and so does Draisaitl. And I mean, those two are the best. And I mean, there's other guys like McKinnon, of course, and McDavid especially. The way that he skates and as fast as he is, and the way he can go through the team from one end to the other. He was like Paul Coffey used to do that a lot, but he was a defenseman, of course. Draisaitl and McDavid. I mean, it's who knows what's going to happen in the playoffs, and everybody's asking and everybody's wondering how healthy the Oilers are going to be.
I talked to Alan Mitchell today before I came home, to record this podcast with you, I said, Al, I'm talking to Curtis Stock today. Should I ask him anything? And he goes, yeah. He goes, ask him who his guy is. Why does he always know about signings before anyone else?
Well, I've been around for a long time, so I got to know a lot of people, I guess is the bottom line to that. But there was no straight individual source. I had a few of them with the Oilers. We used to go to different players' houses and went to Barry Fraser's place many times. And I just got to know the players and the teams. Like I said, I was writing features, so they were almost all positive features. So there wasn't any worry about that you were going to write something, that they were going to hate you in the morning for.
With that inside information, and with the option coming up for Connor McDavid, do you have it on good authority that McDavid is going to be re-signing with the Edmonton Oilers to go along with hand in hand with Draisaitl, what he signed last year, or have you heard anything different?
I've heard nothing different than that he wants to remain an Oiler.
All right. Well,
and I think he will. I mean, sports has changed so much in the last, when I think about the days of, like with Gretzky and Messier and Anderson and the way that sports is now. I mean, just the way that the difference between how sports media is covered and compared to how it used to be. I mean, now, how the content is consumed and who controls the conversation and how news and life is disseminated. There were three major media outlets, the TV, radio, newspaper, and that's all changed. Because now fans can stream any game, highlight, or interview whenever they want and wherever they want, including podcasts like your own and the one I do with Murray McCord at the ranch. It's all changed. There's 2 pages of sports in the Journal now. We used to have one full page 6 days a week on horse racing alone. And there was about 18 people in the sports department, including deskers and a sports editor and an assistant sports editor. Now there's like 2 or 3.
And it's so many of the media coverage, radio, television, newspaper, print, magazine, the whole thing. It's the way it's transformed. I was going to say the way it's progressed, because I'm not sure if there's actually been a progression in some areas.
Yeah, I know what you're saying, but there's more. There's way more options for fans to listen to whatever they want, and highlights and interviews, or they can stream any game that you want, and it's just really different. It's not close to being the same. Today, breaking news in the newspaper doesn't exist. If something happens after 4 p.m., it didn't happen.
Yeah, well, and that's the way television is a lot these days too.
Yeah.
There's never been an immediacy with television or print, I suppose. But,
no.
Yeah. Okay, well, here we are. This is a podcast which comes out on Tuesday, the 22nd of April, 2025. So that means we are just into the NHL playoffs. That means the Oilers would have been playing last night.
Yeah.
The Leafs would have kicked off their playoff season on Sunday. So let's roll through it, and maybe just a line or two, your thoughts on each of the series and a prediction. Let's start with Toronto and Ottawa.
Toronto. Ottawa's a nice story, but Toronto has not gone past the first round very often, but I think they will this year.
Tampa Bay and Florida.
That's going to be a real, for people going into pools, there's 2 playoff first round matches that people are going to really be wondering about, and Colorado and Dallas and Florida. So, I mean, to win a hockey pool, if you can pick the winners out of those 2 games, you'll go a long way.
Washington and Montreal.
Well, Montreal got into the playoffs the other night, which was nice to see. Washington, I'm not sold on Washington. I don't know. I don't know how they've done it this year. They started off bad and they got good and they stayed good. Montreal has really improved in the last part of the year with guys like Suzuki, Caulfield.
The rookie Hudson coming in.
Hudson, he's been a great defenseman.
Yeah. And I kind of wonder with Washington, there was so much emotion all
Yeah,
season long for Ovechkin to get
yeah.
to Gretzky's point and beyond. It makes you wonder if that emotion is going to be scaled down 2/3 now that the playoffs are on, and now that he's achieved that Gretzky record, and if it's going to have the same sort of intent or desire or passion that they had all season.
It's hard to say. I'm not sold on Washington at all, and that means that Montreal's got a chance.
Carolina and New Jersey.
I can go with an upset there with New Jersey. I don't know why, but they play playoff hockey 82 games a year. They got the right style. They lost their best player, but they've got some firepower. They got good defense. They got good goaltending, and I think they could post an upset. Carolina's got guys coming back too, though. So
Winnipeg and St. Louis.
well, Winnipeg has the best goalie. So I don't know. I think you got to go with Winnipeg.
Yeah, goalies win you championships, I
Yeah.
suppose. Isn't that the old adage?
Yeah, it still is.
Dallas and Colorado. This is the same sort of thing that you were talking about with Tampa and Florida. Dallas, Colorado. Who's going to
Yeah.
go deep there?
I have no idea. Heiskanen and Jason Robertson are back for Dallas, and Colorado has been a revelation again in the last part of the year. They'll be tough to beat, and like I said, that Colorado Dallas is a coin flip, and so is Tampa and Florida. Those two games scare me. I'd be going in a couple of hockey pools, and I'm not sure what I'm going to do. I might avoid both of those altogether and stick with Vegas, because I think Vegas has got a good team.
I was going to say Vegas and Minnesota are next. So you think Vegas and Minnesota doesn't have a chance? The whole Marc-Andre Fleury parade is over?
I don't know. They got Kaprizov and back. So that really helps Minnesota's chances.
And finally, Los Angeles and Edmonton.
Good one. I have absolutely no idea what's going to happen. I mean, you got the two greatest players in the league, and that should be enough to win, but they did not address the goaltending or the defense, and that really scares me. And they've got a lot of injuries, as you know.
Curtis Stock, Curtis J. Stock on Twitter, or X if you prefer. VIP Golf Show Sunday mornings is a podcast you can check out. And, of course, the book, The Turcots, The Remarkable Story of a Horse Racing Dynasty. Curtis, it's been a real treat chatting with you today. I appreciate it. Thank you.
No, thank you very much.
Reluctantly.
This podcast, reluctantly sponsored by homegirls.ca, a top producing team at Remax Professionals. Also by Northern Alberta Heating, with work in and out of Edmonton and hiring bonuses for experienced candidates. Email your resume to tim@northernheating.ca.
Reluctantly.